Little story of God's love yesterday. Last Sunday, Ion came here to be welcomed into the church. Her mom, Sybil, has a little time left. She's in her hospital bed at home. And so we went to this young woman's house with her mom. They got her out of bed, and about 25 or 30 of the family members all were there, all for you, yes? And Margaret Roncalli chose the gospel of the day for me to read, or actually her wonderful godmother. And it was the gospel where Jesus is baptized. We were there to baptize her. Now, we forgot the book. So for all of you rubricists and are going to write to the Vatican and say we did the wrong thing, we did the right thing, didn't we? But her mom, from her wheelchair, close to her and close to the water, said, "My daughter, you are the most important thing that has ever happened to me. I love you. You're special. You will be somebody." And you know what the gospel was? A moment later, Jesus saying, or God saying to Jesus the Father, "You are my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. I love you." There was no need for a homily because the Spirit of God was totally there. And this young woman was baptized, Ion Indira Taylor, yesterday, and she is now a full member of the Roman Catholic Church. I give her a big clap. So thank you.
Good morning, St. Columba.
Good morning, God.
Thank you for the opportunity to come and break open the Word, to be part of this great celebration with the Knights and the Ladies of Peter Claver. In the face of that great story and those gospel parables that we just heard, such exquisite literature in and of themselves, but heart-wrenching stories, I'm a little embarrassed to do a little ploy here, and maybe something that's a little trite, but it might help us understand how to approach the gospel today. So I offer a picture. You've seen this picture before, maybe? What do you see? A young girl. Somebody sees a young girl there, looking off to the left there. You see that? Anybody see anything else? There's an old lady there as well. You see it? There's the old lady. For those of you who only saw a young girl, you go, "Wait, I didn't see that." For those of you who only saw the old lady, there's a young girl there. We see that. Lots of times in the pictures that we see different things. In the stories that we hear different things. And that's what's my experience of listening again to this great gospel parable, the prodigal son. Remember when I was young, went on a retreat in high school, I think it was, and heard this story. And I was taken, so taken by the young son in this story. That's who I saw in the picture. That's who I focused on. This young son who, like me at the time, was thinking that I had disappointed God in some way, that I couldn't live up to all those demands. I was trying to do everything right, but I didn't seem to have the power to do it. And I got to a place in my life when I wanted to go back to God and say, "Okay, I blew it. Can you just pardon me? Can I try again? Can I come back and try to earn your love again?" And then this great story. I hear this story of this father seeing his son returning, jumping up, running to him, putting his arms around, embracing him. And as the son goes to tell his part of the story, how what he did was wrong, but now I will come back and I will be your hired servant. I will earn your love back. And the father doesn't even let him get that far. He says, no, let's bring on the celebration. Let's kill the fatted calf. Put a ring on his finger, shoes on his feet, because this son of mine who was lost has been found. What I heard as a young man, what I hope we all hear in this story, is that no, we don't have to earn God's love. We don't have to jump through all the hoops. We don't have to make God love us. That's a gift that's already been given to us. We have to come to see that. As I get a little older, about God's work, I think, trying to be effective in what I do, trying to be responsive to what God is calling me to do. I'm out there on the front lines of marching down Geary Boulevard in San Francisco, protesting the Vietnam War, down in Delano, signing up farm workers in the United Farm Workers Union, community organizing, involved in that. I'm getting arrested in the Nevada desert to protest nuclear weapons, all those things. And so I read this story then, and I focus on Jesus who's telling it. That's who I see here. Jesus is telling this story to confront or to answer the Pharisees, who asking him, why are you having dinner, sharing meals with these sinners? These are the people that we should be disdaining and pushing aside. People who obey the laws and are ritually clean. These are the people who you should be coming to. And Jesus puts them in their place. Jesus says, we are a church of the dispossessed. Again, like Peter Claver in a lot of ways. We are the people, we are the church of those who have been pushed aside. And we welcome them. That's what justice is all about. That's what we are called. We're called to be an inclusive church. That was the Jesus who I recognized in this story. That was a confirmation for me of what I was called to do. We all get older. It's inevitable. When I hear this story now, my eyes focus on the elder son. Indignant, resentful, filled with bitterness. It's not fair. It's not fair that those of us who live faithful, obedient, religious lives, and then somebody comes along after doing whatever they do, working wherever they work, making the money the way they do, spending it lavishly, but on their deathbed they have a conversion. And they come waltzing in the door. I focus on the elder son because sometimes I can't rejoice when that person gets up and tells their story of how they have changed their life. Because I'm wondering, well, where the hell have you been all these years anyway? Somebody comes into this church, and we welcome them. We have big celebrations. We go on Easter vigils as they become new parts of the church. And I'm like saying, who was there when we were sheetrocking that parish hall 20 years ago? It's an awful place to be. It's a place where you have a daughter who gets an A-. You say, well, what'd you do wrong? You have a wife who buys me a nice jacket. And I say, I already got 5 of them. It's somebody who works for me. Works for a nonprofit and doesn't make a whole lot of money, but I'm wondering why they're using their cell phone in their office. It's a terrible place to be. Resentment, bitterness, the inability to rejoice with others, to join in the dance. Come on, let's celebrate. No, I'm not gonna. No, not for them. Father Aiden gave us maybe even a better image than this picture of this woman that I put up on the screen a while ago. Gave a better image a couple of weeks ago. He had a mirror here, and he said that's what the Gospels do. They hold a mirror up to us, and he held a mirror up to us. You turn it around and you look at that mirror. I look at that mirror myself, and I used to see that young man filled with hope and excitement that I actually brought God joy. I see that person who was called to proclaim justice, to proclaim a church that was including everybody. And now I see this person who's bitter and resentful. And these words speak again to me. Jesus was very clever in telling this gospel story, this parable, because unlike the first two parables where he goes along and we have people who are lost and then they're found and then we rejoice. The sheep is found, was lost, is found, let's rejoice. The coin was lost, it's found, let's rejoice. This young son comes home, he was lost, he's found, let's rejoice. But then he goes on from there and brings in the elder son. This recalls for us who he was speaking to. He was confronting these Pharisees, and all of a sudden, he had to include them in the story, and so all of a sudden they see themselves, the complainers, the people who are bitter, the people who are resentful that Jesus was extending his hospitality to these sinners and tax collectors. They saw themselves, because in the son, the eldest son, we also see someone who was lost. The young son wanted his inheritance, got it, said, now it's mine. I don't have to depend on you anymore, Father. I'm going off with this, and I'll do with it what I want. It's mine. It's mine. You saw the movie, maybe you didn't. Maybe you had to because your grandkids kept making you watch it. But Finding Nemo, the seagulls. Mine, 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 mine. The younger son was lost because he cut off that relationship with his father. He no longer wanted to be a receiver of that gift, dependent on his father, and so he took it. And when you take gifts like that, and you forget that they're gifts, and you forget the giver of those gifts just dissipate. They go away. And that's what happened to him. And so he comes back. But what we find in the end of this story, and what speaks to us who are me, I won't bring you in on this, but me, those who are resentful and bitter, that we too have lost. We are lost. We have lost our appreciation for what God has given us. This older son didn't talk like a son. Father, I've been here all the time. I've worked hard for you. I've done whatever I've been obedient. He's describing a servant, a slave. He's lost the gift. What I need to do is to look at this story anew, hear it again, and this time focus on someone else in this story. We are called to not look at the prodigal son, but to look at the prodigal father. Prodigal means excessive. The excessive love of this father who didn't count the cost, but gave and gave. Gave mercy, gave compassion. That's who we're called to be in this story. That we need to, like the sons in this gospel parable, we need to appreciate the abundant love of God in our lives. Love that we do not need to earn. Love that we cannot convince God to give us because it's already there. Love that we cannot lose. Abundant love, abundant mercy, abundant compassion, abundant forgiveness. That's the gift that's held out to both sons here. My child, I hear these words. My child, you have always been with me. All that I have is yours. God has always been with us. We've lived our lives, if we've been faithful and obedient, if we've strayed and come back, whatever that is, God has called us to receive freely his gift, that gift of love. That's what Peter Claver saw when he arrives in Cartagena. Slaves being taken off the ship. People who can't see, the Pharisees of his day saying, "Who are these people? Why are you with them?" And he sees, he appreciates that gift that has been given. He knows, he baptizes them. You don't baptize animals. That's the way people treated the slaves as they were unboarded from those ships. Hundreds of thousands of them. He baptized them because he had the gift and recognized the gift in others. He read this gospel story, the same story we just heard, he heard. And he knew that he was to be like the Father. He was to allow himself to be moved with compassion. He was the one, the story goes, he didn't even wait for the ships to dock. He went out to the ships and went down in the galleys and brought them lemonade and things because they'd been on this long journey dying. Nurtured them back to health. He had the gift, and that allowed him to see the gift in others. That these were human beings called by God, human beings with dignity and respect because they were children of God. He's an example for us as we listen to the same parable that he heard in Spain years before. He was on his journey. He had been embraced by his Father, and then he became that for others. As we hear this gospel story today, as we're called to get over the resentment, to be healed of that, to experience the love, that abundant love of God, then we are called to be that for others. My child, you have been with me always. Everything I have is yours. It's ours to share with others. Amen.
Amen.